I love about this industry is that we're in love with three-letter acronyms and four-letter words. Um, we just are. I don't know why, but it's just we are. So, have you gotten to that point where you've kind of written down, or at least got an idea of where you would like this culture-wise to evolve to?
In my head, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Have we got it really involved as much as I'd like it to be store wide yet? No.
For freshly brewed discussion on automotive sales and marketing, this is Coffee with Jason. The Coffee with Jason podcast is sponsored by Closer's Coffee. For that full-bodied, rich, sweet flavor with a bright acidity, drink Closer's Coffee, stay caffeinated, and keep on closing. Find out more at closerscoffee.ca.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here with Digital Dealership Solutions. Hey, thanks for joining me on another episode of Coffee with Jason. Today, I have a very special guest. Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to come jam with me.
Thanks for having me.
For everybody out there that don't know who you are, if you can kind of give us that 2-minute origin story, that is Brandon, that'd be a great place for us to get started.
Do that. Brandon Sanchioni, currently the general manager of Open Road Richmond Hyundai, Genesis Richmond. Just took the dealership over as of September 1. I'm in about my 6th year in the car business. Started on the sales floor, worked my way up in internet sales, subprime finance, assistant sales manager, used car manager, and now in my 2nd store as general manager. So it's been a ride.
Sounds like it's been a total ride. So I'm glad we had the chance to kind of talk, because we've had a couple times we've been able to exchange back and forth on LinkedIn, and I think there's a topic that we definitely see eye to eye on, and I think unfortunately there's just really not enough content out there about this topic, and that's the team portion, really developing that team, and to the point where eventually we're able to develop a culture out of that team. Now, I think for a lot of dealerships, though, they look at this and they're still stuck in this superstar culture of, there's those 2 or 3 people within the dealership that, sell 40, 50, 60% of the sales. And it's kind of like whatever they say, whatever they want kind of dictates the direction of the dealership. But we know that the power is in the team, not necessarily the individuals. So, for a dealership out there that's like, hey, I understand and I want to go that direction, what kind of advice would you typically?
Culture starts at the top, and culture is extremely important to me. Anybody that I've spoken to or led with knows that's a huge part of my strategy, and it's a buzzword right now, and I don't think a lot of people really understand what it is. I see all over LinkedIn #culture, #this. How many calls does it take to book one appointment? I posted something on LinkedIn the other day to see what kind of responses I would get.
Mm-hmm.
My mentality and my shift is this: build your team with the right people, make them better outside of the dealership so that they're better inside of the dealership. I'm not going to drill home that they need to make 100 calls to book an appointment. I'm going to drill home that they can walk into this dealership and know that they can hang their hat and stay a while.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important to me.
Well, I think what it is right now, it's like, and we know this, being in the industry long enough, we have these mountains and valleys of efforts. You know what I mean? Like, it's like one month a dealership just does really, really well, and it just seems like everything was kind of connecting, everybody was jiving well, customers were happy, the salespeople were happy, staff was happy, and it shows in our profitability, right? And then you get to the next month, and this thing that's called what I like to call full belly syndrome kind of sets in, and it's like we aren't able to continue to extend those same level of efforts into the next month, and I find the reason for that is a lack of fire in someone's belly. How do you go about ensuring that fire is just always kind of lit within your team's belly?
It's a long-term strategy. I'm living it currently. So September 1, took over to the store. I had to look at the whole operation and go, okay, where do I start? Mm-hmm. And, I'm big on what I call APP or app. I've kind of honed the acronym. It's accountability, process, and people. Let's start with being accountable. And that's myself at the top, starting there.
I like that.
holding myself accountable as long as as well as my team, putting a proper process in place that's going to be held accountable, the process, and then ensuring that we have the people to implement it. So, we're living that right now. I can tell you, my store, we just came off the best month the store's ever had. We hit #1 in Western Canada for Hyundai volume. That's never been done here before.
That's cool. Congrats.
Very cool. Yeah, the team's super excited, and if you know our location, it's a challenge. So for us to do it here, we're excited to get our back to the auto mall. But what I didn't want to happen is us all sit on our paychecks after that, right? So we had a good meeting at the start of this month. Say, guys, like, let's do it again. Like, maybe not. I'm not saying that we have to get #1 in Western Canada again, but let's be in that top 3 part of that conversation again.
Yeah, let's put those efforts. It's those same efforts, right? The results are the results. They are what they are, right? It is going to be getting colder. By the way, how cold is it right now?
Not bad.
No, it hasn't set in yet.
It's not bad yet,
but it's coming.
yeah. But we're so I guess that fire lit within. It starts with me managing my expectations of my managers, shifting kind of what my mentality and culture is about, and ensuring that it's being instilled in the team. So we were flat-footed at the start of the month, and that's exactly what I thought was going to happen. So just regrouping, talking to the team about where we want to be, where we are now, and how do we get there, and not really sitting there and going like, this is the process and you have to stick to it. How do we become better? How do we become better people? How do we when our customers walk in this door, how do they feel that they can hang their hat and hang out with us for a while? Not just us, right? So all of a sudden, boom, the lights went off. Now we're having a run. We're going to put up 75 cars on an average. They did 50 before. So, it's just, I think it's ongoing. You gotta constantly be with your team, sit with them. One thing I did when I took the store over, at my office is in the back of the dealership. I moved it straight up to the sales tower. Nobody liked that at the beginning, but now it works. But hang out with everybody and be part of the team.
So now, how do you? I think because I think for any team, when I think of a team, right, that it is a collective effort of individuals, working towards an ultimate goal and objective. What have you guys defined as? I'm sure the goals and objectives will evolve over time for you, but as of right now, what are those goals and objectives that you have set for your team?
Constant improvement. So we want to, I train weekly on Mondays with the team, and we keep going over the same thing we did the week before until we get it. So, and if we have to do it for 6 weeks straight, we're going to do it for 6 weeks straight. It's just going to make us better as soon as we know that skill. But our process is, so I spent 5 years in law enforcement, the car business, and I knew that when I started my shift in law enforcement, I had duties. So I knew that I had to do my briefing. I had to find my hotspots, sign into my radio, get in my car. So I've kind of said, okay, why can't we do the same thing here? People come into the car business and they
totally makes sense.
Grab their newspaper, they drink their coffee. They don't have a plan, right? They don't have day-to-day duties that fill their day, and you can lose tons of hours, right? So my guys know that we've got a daily game plan sheet that they come in, they sit with their managers, they go over it so that they know, what am I going to do? What are the 4 things I'm going to do to sell a car today? And I don't necessarily think that it's culture, that's process. I don't think process defines a culture, but where culture is in that is the team now knows when they show up, what we do is we look at our operation and what we're going to do today to be successful. That's the culture part, not the.
That's what it is. It's the commitment to success. All right. And it's through routine that I think eventually starts to evolve into something else. But it's that activity of consistently doing something towards an ultimate goal and objective. It just kind of becomes a culture part, right? It's just something you guys are doing. Right now it's an activity. You guys are training on that activity of that daily. So tell me kind of about this. So this is a worksheet that you'd find in, what did you call it again? It was a daily.
It's called my game plan, daily.
Daily game plan. All right. So I like that.
There's other stores that use, a similar variety of it. I learn from the best, so obviously you got to take some ideas from the people that you learn from. And it works. And I didn't do it because I want to know what you're doing every day. I did it because I want you to have a plan. I want you to have something to do when you show up to this dealership. Not waste your time. We're not here to volunteer. We're all here to be successful, make some money, right?
So kind of walk me through that morning routine, because I'm curious, and I think a lot of people probably listening and watching are too, right? What does it look like? I understand that in your experience in law enforcement, it was that routine that helped you prep for your day. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're bringing, to the dealership now, is a routine that helps them prep them for their efforts for the day. So what does that look like starting in the morning for someone?
It was a really cool shift. So it took about a month to get the team on board, or just to make this a habit, right?
Yeah.
And again, I don't think that's a process thing. I think that's a culture thing. Finally, they said, yeah, this actually works, and we're going to buy into the program, and we're going to be a part of this. So the guys come in and they immediately fill out their daily game plan. Whether some of them fill it the night before, fill it out. I've got duotanks put together. They find the first manager there, whether that's myself, sales managers, and you sit them for quick 15, 20 minutes, and you highlight your top 5 leads. You highlight what you're working on in terms of referrals, repeat customers, tool reviews, how many deliveries you have today, and then the 3 things that you're going to do today to sell a car. And I think you could shift that to every part of this industry, not just sales.
Oh, I totally agree. I think the F&I office can have that. I think service advisors can 100% use it as well. I mean, service advisors need to be working on, declined op codes, so, people that refused, work, how do we get back, how we get a hold of them, how we do that. But it's at the end of the day, it's about routine. And you know what? I've had the opportunity to be in a lot of dealerships, and I mean a lot. I travel just an obscene amount, right? And I start to see patterns with dealerships that I feel that are and they're running their race, and they're doing a great job at it. And then there's the ones that are kind of treading water, and they're kind of getting by, and then there's ones that are just straight up just drowning in their own misery, right? I find the ones that are really kind of up here, there's a consistent pattern of routine. Like either knowingly or unknowingly, they did it, but it's just the team seems to have this element of a routine. I think that's the best place for a dealership to start. I think when a dealership thinks of culture, they get overwhelmed with the idea of what the hell that actually is. It's like they don't know where to start. Like, what's the starting point? And I think the routine is just a great place for that.
Yeah, I think culture is such a buzzword, and true understanding of it sometimes bothers me, because I think people convolute it, and I think they really go in the wrong direction with it. I truly believe there's a lot of stores or managers, or even just the low-level staff, that think culture is a process. I believe that for a second.
Yep.
It's the energy. It's what you instill in your team. It's not you have to do the worksheet and we're going to desk it with 5K down over 60 months every time. No, it's that build up and lead up to getting there. So the energy within the store, the commitment that the guy has to getting that deal, it's hard to grasp that whole culture statement, right? It's very hard to grasp and actually truly understand it and implement it well.
Oh, no, I think so. It is tough, right? And I think, culture is more of a byproduct of a lot of our efforts. It's like, it's not something, look, let's say what culture not is real quick, right? You taking your team out for beer and wings one night is not culture. Okay. Let's just make that clear. That's not culture. Okay. Scrubbing with your team, or doing that kind of that daily morning meeting kind of thing with them, that's a great effort. It's a great routine. But again, that's not culture, right? It's the collective efforts of you wanting to, I think, define kind of, why the business does what they do, the way that they do it, to the point where a individual can start making decisions kind of on their own, because they know what the ultimate goal and objective is. I've seen a couple of examples of this play out, right? I have one dealership where the culture is whatever it takes. That's literally what it is. It's whatever it takes, right? Now this started off as as an idea that, that molded into a series of routines molded into a series of processes, and processes, slowly started to develop into more of a cultural understanding of the direction that the business was going in. To the point now where at the individual level, someone can autonomously make a decision on what they need to do based on what the culture of the business is. It is very rare. I will tell you right now, it's very rare. But when it does happen, it's pretty freaking impressive. Not gonna lie, like it's pretty damn impressive to watch it actually play out.
Yeah, you can watch the shift, right? And it's important. It's an important step that I think us as high level managers or even low level, low frontline staff need to grasp and understand as we shift this industry. I talk to a lot of people on a day-to-day basis. I've got a lot of friends in the car business, successful ones, and a big conversation we have, just was having dinner last night with one. We have to shift where we are. Still think our mentality is so lost in old school thought. And it's not to say that the old school guys aren't doing well, but we're still stuck in the past. We're still stuck in these advertising ways of, we're going to overpay for your trade. We're not going to overpay for your trade. We're going to always overpay for your trade, right? So we've got to shift, and I think it starts the culture. That's where it starts. We've got to get everybody on board that runs these operations, shift the mentality and thinking of what the customers think. That I still have customers that still think we're dirty salesmen.
Of course.
Whether that's parts, service, sales, it doesn't matter. They still have that image, and I think it's on us to shift that, and that's hugely important to me. Kind of shifting where we're going to head with this industry, as it gets more aggressive, as it gets more competitive. But how do we do that? Is changing that scenic landscape that's the how do we get there?
Well, changing the customer's perception should be a dealership's goal and objective, but typically it isn't, right? Like it really isn't, because it doesn't necessarily define out in dollars and pennies. You can't break it out into dollars and pennies. But I think too often, we just let the consumer perceive us however they want to perceive us. We don't spend time. We don't create a goal and objective. We don't build a strategy of like, let's say, for example, I want my customers to perceive us as being a fun business. I want them to perceive it. Like the perception is that when they come here to buy a car, when they come here to service a car, when they come in to buy parts, whatever, it's going to be fun. Well, okay, that's cool. That's what you want right now. That's probably not what most customers think of when they go to buy a car. But that's where I think the processes can come in, right? Our processes then have to be built around the goal and objective of how we want to be perceived as a business. If we want to be perceived as a fun place to buy a car, then how do we change the process to inject a level of entertainment or fun into it?
Yep, I agree. It's a huge task. It's a hard task, but it starts within. Any one of us, I employ my team to have some autonomy and take it upon themselves to get involved and change that thinking of us, from the customer's mindset. And even at the store level, I posted something on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago as well. I had a team member approach me and said that they wanted to quit, and so I just got chatting with them. Kind of just wanted to understand why. Mm-hmm. And their passion, what they love to do, is social work. It's not the car business, and I can't be mad at him for that, right?
No, not at all.
Great team member, put up the results, followed the process, bought into the culture. And I said, is that what you want to do? Is that what you love doing? He says, yeah. And I said, is that going to make you better? And he said, absolutely. And I said, then I'm happy for you, man. Because at the end of the day, if I let him leave here and thinking I'm mad at him or that is not the culture I want to breed. Mm-hmm. I want to be the best person you can be, whether that's inside this dealership or outside of it. So, if he in a couple of years says social work's not for me, I'm gonna head back into the car business, I hope he calls me, because I think leaving with that impression, he will. So that's I want good people here. That's a big part of this is good people.
And how you want to be perceived by the consumer, even how the employees even perceive or look at each other. What has been the goal? I mean, where do you see it being And the next, I mean, I understand look, it's early, right? So you're in that beginning stage of let's create the routines, and routines will turn into processes. Actually, I loved your 3-letter acronym. It was accountability, process, people,
Yep.
APP.
Yep.
You know, what I love about this industry is that we're in love with 3-letter acronyms and 4-letter words. We just are. I don't know why, but it's just we are. So have you gotten to that point where you've kind of written down or at least got an idea of where you would like this culture-wise to evolve to?
In my head, yes.
Mhm.
Have we got it really involved as much as I'd like it to be store wide yet? No. We're getting there. It's going to take some time. We've still got, in my current situation, we've still got the mentality that we're in this really tough location and we're not in our beautiful big building and the business isn't there. But when you really shift the thinking process behind it, these guys went from selling 45 cars to 90 last month and the doors weren't busting at the seams. It was because they were doing a better job of what they had in front of them than what they were doing before. And that was just honing in on obviously process and routine. And again, my acronym APP, I talk about APP every single meeting. I have it written on my whiteboard every day. I write it. If it's erased, I just wrote it again this morning. That's that's part of my culture. Like, let's hold each other accountable. Let's hold ourselves accountable. Then we can follow our process the right way, and within that, we'll have the right people here because they follow all the parts of the acronym. So we're that vision that how we get there. Are we getting there? Yes. I still got to build that right team, and we've got some key parts to it. I still think we're missing some pieces in the armor, um, some puzzle pieces that need to be fit together that just aren't fitting right. But the feeling is getting better. I can tell you if you were here September 1 and now, the shift in the atmosphere.
Just the temperature in the whole building is just a little nicer than what it was before.
You could see it. I mean, obviously, when success is happening, everybody's humming, right? Everybody's happy. And you could see it store wide. We started to get traction mid-month October, and then we started going, and we really started riding the train and doing a great job. And then you saw sort of some parts pick up on it. You saw my service manager, my foreman going, "Man, how are you guys doing?" And all of a sudden, we're getting taught lots of trades. My service manager's pumped for his internal, going to go through the roof. We're selling a lot more new cars, getting PDIs. He's pumped, right? So that culture shift that we can do this.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was so cool to see that how it went through the store, and you didn't have to say anything. You just watched it.
Well, and I love the way that you kicked it off, right? I mean, for anybody out there, routine's the hardest thing, right? Like, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay. I'm going to have to create the routine of consistently going to the gym, right? Embracing a routine of any kind, all right, breeds the idea of consistency in us. So then we become more consistent in our efforts. But it all starts with committing to some type of routine. Are there any other routines that you've started to work on within the dealership so far?
That's a big one. And that daily game plan comes down to accountability, right? Are the team members holding each other accountable to that daily game plan? Are the sales guys filling it out and holding themselves accountable? Are the managers actually going over it with the team? In terms of routine, that's really the big one. I haven't really dove deep into other stuff. Just trying to get the small stuff figured out from a low level, and then start thinking big picture as we move forward here.
I'm curious. Obviously, this had took some time for you to get to this place personally yourself. What did that kind of path of discovery, to understanding the importance of culture in team development for you? How did that happen?
I could rewind it to sports. That team atmosphere, that camaraderie. In the locker room, I could again. I've learned a lot from law enforcement in terms of routine, process, delivery, holding each other accountable, being there for each other. It's a big part of it. But within the car business, I just looked at myself in the mirror and I said, how am I going to be a better person, and how am I going to instill that in the team here? You got to get, in my opinion, extremely involved in the community, and that's not writing $100,000 checks to the community. That's getting out there and getting involved. So I would consider myself an introvert. and it's funny because I'm in the car business, but I really take it upon myself to be active in the community, and that's just going to events. That's being part of the Chamber of Commerce when I was in the Okanagan. That's being part of the Brain Injury Society, and I think from the whole team perspective, if people see that I'm doing that and I bring some guys to these events and get out there, then we start to get recognized, and then it shifts back to the store, and hopefully it performs that way. I don't think money's going to drive that.
No. Well, you know what? I think that, everybody's a byproduct of their environment. They're, of what they experienced and what they've consumed and brought them to the place of where they are, right? So I want to go a little deeper into, for you, sports and then also law enforcement. When you think back to your time, in sports, what were maybe a couple of the biggest takeaways you say from that time spent? These are the lessons that I learned from my time in sports.
I think with sport, the key to success is gelling as a team, right? If you don't have that chemistry, you don't have that understanding as a whole, you can't individualize it. And that is no different than the car business.
Mm.
You need
I
the
agree.
right team in place, and everybody's got to be on the same page. Service advisors need to know that, any decline work need to be followed up on. Your appointment coordinators got to be in line with your advisors to ensure that their days are set up. So sports, that was huge for me, is understanding that it takes all of us to get there to win that game.
That it's a holistic effort, and that's a big one, right? I especially in an industry that I still think we're stuck in that kind of superstar culture where we think we rely so much on just a few key individuals. We forget that it's a holistic effort to sell this car, to market these cars, to service these cars, to put parts in these cars. It takes everybody as a team to do that. Now, when you were in law enforcement, where were you in law enforcement? Where you are now, or somewhere else?
Somewhere else, yeah.
Okay, cool. When you were in law enforcement, what would you say that the big lesson that you got from being in that environment that you now bring into the automotive space with you?
Accountability was huge. Image in the sense of you got to really present yourself well, and that the same for the car business. You don't want to present yourself. You don't want to present yourself as untrustworthy, and your first impression is everything, right? And then team environment, but also process and routine. We always had something that we had to do. It was almost like a checkbox, and that's kind of shifted my thinking into the car business as well. So
let's go a little farther into what you mean by how you present yourself.
You've got to. I met with a DP a couple days ago, and he had said something. It's important for people to carry themselves a certain way and look the part. You look good, feel good, talk good. How people say that. But it's not so much how perfect is your tie, how straight it is. It's how do you carry yourself when you walk into a room. Do people stand up and go, good morning? Do people, recognize that, okay, he's showed up on time. He's, well pressed. He's got, a sloppy shirt that's wrinkled and untucked. I think that's important. So looking the part is, and that image from both a customer standpoint and your team is key. If I showed up late every day, it would instill a culture for the team members to show up late. If I showed up in track pants, thing, right? So
it's kind of that mental and physical preparation is really kind of required. Like it's like, for us, it's this is our stadium. The showroom is our stadium. This is where we play our game. And we need to come to that showroom, shoelaces laced and jersey on and ready to play and put as much as we can out on that field and leave it out there and push our efforts as far as we can, and hopefully the results will ultimately come with it, right?
Yep.
Now, I got a question because I get this a lot, right? What do you do when you have someone that's just not gelling well with the team, but the results are quite high?
So I'm a big believer in giving people opportunities, probably to a fault. I think eventually you've got to cut that string. You can have a rock star in your room, but if they're not buying into the culture and what you're trying to do, it's down the road going to affect you.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I could have an extreme high performer, but his CSI is terrible because he's not instilling in with the customer the culture that we have here, or could break down and say, well, he's not presenting the car well on delivery, what it is, right? So for me personally, and people will probably disagree with this, I would give him an opportunity, but I would probably eventually part ways, just simply because that doesn't build the team and culture that I want.
Yeah.
And I'm a believer that if I can get you bought into the culture and bought into the program, I can make you that rock star that person was.
Oh, I completely agree with you. So then let's talk about that. Let's talk about buy-in, because I've gotten again that, well, I get that comment actually quite a bit. Jason, man, I got these ideas. Okay, I'm creating these routines. I got these processes. Okay, I got a third of the team over here that are fully bought in. I got another third that are on the fence a little bit, but I'm okay with them because I'm good with it. Right? I can get it over. Then I got this third over here that's just just dragging their feet. It's just, you have these different levels of buy-in. How do we get everybody to kind of buy into these routines and processes that are designed to ultimately create this culture within the dealership?
That's also a long-term strategy. That there's no
keyword long-term, right? Like that's what I'm saying. We have to embrace the fact that this is not something that's going to happen in a 30-day period.
No,
it's not something that's going to happen in a 90-day period. I mean, this is something that takes time.
Yeah, you've got to be consistent with it too, right? So you can't fall off the wagon, so to speak. So consistency is key. And I think eventually in time, those high performers that have bought into the program and are consistently doing well, the low hanging fruit guys will see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll slowly get started. It's always that constant roller coaster. I think you've got, like you said, you're never going to have everybody on the same page, but you've got the guys that are up top, and then eventually the guys come back on the roller coaster and they start swinging back to the top with the top. I see it. I watched it here, and I only reference this store simply because we had a huge transition in 1 month. Like the volume these guys seen, they couldn't handle. We got customer complaints, unfortunately, because of it, but that's part of the process. You got to learn and grow. Mm-hmm. That was simply because they didn't anticipate the volume. So two things. I have a team here when I started here that their thinking process was, we can't do this. There's no traffic here. There's not enough deals. There's 4 sales guys, 5 sales guys. We're not making any money. 2 weeks in, I didn't hear anybody say that anymore. And I remember standing here running a meeting, and I said, I haven't heard anybody say, you're not busy, that you're not selling cars anymore, and that there's nobody that comes here. Like, they're doing a great job. That's why. And then with that, I had a performer that was about a 10-car guy consistently in business for about a year. He'd never really peaked, and he sold 25 cars.
Holy cow, that's a big one for him.
I got buy-in from him right away, right? And he loves it, and he's part of the culture. He's part of the team, and I'm slowly watching some other people follow in his footsteps, because he knows he can do it. And then all of a sudden, he's telling those guys, "Man, we can do it." Right? That's what I want. That.
They're beginning to see the what's in it for me, the Whiffam effect, right? Like the what's in it for me kind of a thing. And I find that is one of the reasons why we struggle sometimes with buy-in. Look, the fact you had a great month, that helps. I mean, that's huge, right? But even if you hadn't had that month, you still would have been pushing. Like you still would have been pushing the routine. You still would have been pushing a commitment to the processes. So it's like, how do you define that what's in it for me for the team? Do you work with the individual, or do you try to define what's in it for the collectiveness? How do you approach that?
Both. Like a big thing I say to both my last stores, I use the saying, "I'm here for you," and I joke and I say, "I'm here for you." And as silly it is, I am actually here for them. And so for me, being the GM, I don't care. When I'm out in the public, I sell cars. I'm a GM. It's not a title thing for me. So, and I think my team recognizes that. So when I go to them and I try and help them with the deal, or for example, the other day I sat with one of our new hires and I did some training just off the cuff, sat with him for an hour, and all of a sudden one guy shows back to the desk. All of a sudden 4 guys are at the desk, and then 6 guys are at the desk. We've got this huddle, and so it transformed from one guy learning to now I've got buy-in. I've got what I wanted.
Yeah.
Everybody circle around. And that's not me. I'm not the perfect. I got so much to work on. That's not me. That's just the culture that I want to breed. That we're all in together. One guy saw one guy learning. Well, I'm going to jump into that, and then another guy. It was so cool to watch.
That is super cool. Now speaking, because you mentioned something about hiring, right? And I think that's another common question that comes up when I'm talking or working with a dealership and they're trying to develop out their team, ultimately get to the point of culture and stuff like that. Is how do you hire? What are you looking for to hire? I mean, how do you know the person is the right match for the team?
Skill set is, everybody looks at it, you can look at a paper resume, but I get to know them on a personal level. So so you got to be careful what you ask people in interviews, but nowadays,
I know.
you really gotta, and again, law enforcement really taught you how to read people, right? So you really gotta understand, is this a good person at the core, and how can I take that and mold them into a good service advisor or tech or salesperson, right? And I also think you got to look within the company. So we had somebody that was looking to resign here within the company that was currently in a role here at the store, and I caught wind that they wanted to leave, and so I had approached them to ask, kind of why do you want to leave? And they said, well, I want to be in sales. So, well, we sell cars, right? We sell cars.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So got to know him on a personal basis, what he was about, where he wanted to head, how he wanted to get there, and he's selling cars for me now. So the buy-in started there too, because if keeping him within the organization is a good thing. He's already bought into the company culture. Now I've just got him into a different role, and we're going to watch him succeed and have a successful career here, hopefully, and then hopefully that'll instill buy-in to everybody else that's here.
I think that's really cool that during the hiring process that you really do take some time to understand that potential employee's why. It's like, what is motivating them to want to get into sales? I know there's the default answer, right? Money. Okay, well, that's cool. But what the hell does that money actually represent for you? Does it represent you paying off student loans? Does it represent you getting out of mom and dad's basement? Does it represent you and your girlfriend being able to go buy a home together? Like, does it represent, your kids getting braces, sending one to university? Like, what does that money physically represent for you as an individual? And I find that dealerships are kind of afraid to ask that kind of question, to really kind of understand the motivation for an employee to do what's their why, right? And I find the reason for this, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, is knowledge is scary, because once we know something, we're accountable to the fact that we now know that. That makes sense? So do you find that kind of, I mean, how do you approach that? I mean, someone comes to you, you're in the hiring process, and says, look, okay, I understand you want to make money. That's cool. All right. What does that money mean to you? Well, it means that I can, get married and buy a house, with my girlfriend. What do you do with information?
So I'm just looking at my phone here because I took a picture of it. I do an exercise with my team. So I did it when I had my first store, and I did it at this store, and I think it sets the tone. I put on the whiteboard what motivates you, and that's kind of how I kick it off. And I want to know why. Why are you here? Why do you spend 100-hour weeks here?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're going to get money, of course. Yeah, I would only expect people to, a lot of the guys around the room were women, and to say money, because we're all greedy. We're all salespeople at heart. But
there's nothing wrong with that. I just think, what does the money actually mean for them?
Yeah, and we shift that. So I went around the room and I got everybody's answers. Everybody was it was funny. They were playing like, should I say money? Should I not say money? And life balance. Lots of guys. I wanna be here to take my wife on vacation. I want to buy a condo. Sure. All this stuff. So that's what motivates you is important. And then finally, I broke the ice and said, nobody said money. Like, come on, like, you guys are sales guys. Say money. So money. And then we shifted it. We said, what are you going to do with that money? And so you work 100 hours and you make all this money, but what are you going to do with it? And then, you start that thinking process. I like the guys that have a vision, like I want to buy a condo. I like, or the gals, I like the thought process that are thinking outside the box. They don't necessarily think like, what kind of goods can you buy with this money, or what kind of, vacations are great, but like, are you going to put this to something practical, something that's going to make you better or better your life, like buying real estate or something like that. So that's what I look for.
And it's like, and then once you know that, like, obviously now you're accountable for that information. So what do you do with that information?
Well, I think you can use it as a play each and every day. You're working a deal, or you're with an advisor, and hey, is this going to get you closer to that house? Or go back to this deal and close it. That's going to get you that condo, right? So it's a good play to use with the team, and they start thinking, yeah, this is, are you going to give up $1,000, or why don't you give up 500, because that difference in percentage of commission is going to get you closer to that company.
Well, it keeps them moving, keeps them on their path, keeps their direction, and it keeps their goal and objective in front, right? It's just like, I just don't think we spend enough time, like, it's like the goals and objectives are more for us, and we just assume that our employees will just, I told them what my goal and objective is, why won't they follow my goal and objective? But if we can't get the ownership of those goals from our employees who are executing on the efforts required for us to meet those goals, and how the hell are we ever going to do it, right? So we have to not only do a good job of communicating our own goals and objectives from a business perspective, but we have to know, we have to embrace our employees' goals and objectives as well. It's the only way that we'll be able to develop out that person. It's the only way we'll be able to develop out the team and continue to get that constant buy-in.
Yeah, that's key to moving the needle. I think this might sound silly, but with my acronym APP, we sit if we do a meeting, I ask the team, are we accountable today? Are you accountable today? You got to ask yourself. Start that within, and then process. We're going to train on the same process each and every week until we get it. So, and we're going to hold each other accountable to that.
Gosh, man, I think we've done a great job of bringing just some awesome knowledge bombs here today. So, I really appreciate you taking the time to jam with me today, Brandon. This was a lot of fun. For everybody out there that's listening or watching to this right now, and love to connect with you and kind of follow along with this journey, this path and direction that you're heading down, what is the best way for someone to connect with you?
I think it would be great to connect on LinkedIn. More than happy to share my cell phone number and email with folks that we can kind of shift our thinking together and changing the scenic landscape of the car business. And moving forward, hopefully we're going to watch the journey with this store and going from location into our new build, and we'll start to get some videos up, and it'll be cool.
That's awesome. I really look forward to it. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today, Brandon. That was so much fun.
Thanks, Jason.
Have yourself a great day.
See you, man.
We covered a bunch of great topics today. What stood out most to you? Be sure to let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to like the post and share it to keep the conversation going. You can follow Jason on all social media platforms by following Strategy with Jason. You can find him pretty well everywhere you can share content. I hope we were able to get you thinking. And until the next time, have a great day.